All right. Well, welcome, Natalie. Welcome to the show. We're so
Thank
happy to have you
you.
here.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, we have a good amount of time together. It's always a pleasure when you have someone who is just a nice ball of energy and light, and you get to explore their inner workings and what makes them who they are and why they do what they do, especially during a time where there maybe isn't necessarily dark as much darkness as we perceive there to be, but at least that perceived darkness is real to some people, and maybe we can shed some light.
I am, thank you. Like, I'm so just receiving what you just said.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, okay, so when we were doing our best to do some research for this episode, I know we kind of got this together very, last minute, which is awesome and how it is sometimes. We came into a roadblock because we were like, well, she does lots of different things, and we don't know where to begin. So we figured it would be best for you to tell us where things began in your journey and your growth and how you sort of started, stacking your experiences together and now making what it is that you offer to the world. So
Yeah.
why don't you just take us wherever you feel is right, and we'll ride that wave.
Well, thank you for that because it's so funny. That's the conundrum I have. So, feel free to interrupt me whenever, and I can certainly go into more detail because it's definitely a journey. But 11 years ago, I made the jump from corporate America essentially to entrepreneurship. And the reason I'm saying that is because for me, entrepreneurship was very much sharing my gifts with the world. And this whole journey of, as you guys know, like personal transformation that really just goes to a whole new level when you say, hey, I'm going to have a business that's here to change people's lives. And so at that point in time, I made it wasn't so much that I changed, but it was like everything I've been doing personally for years all of a sudden became professionally what I was offering. So at that point, it was my yoga studio. And there's always been this underlying, undeniable like energy and theme in my life, which is really, 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 really loving yourself, because it was something that I used to dynamically struggle with. And of course, there's always growth and expansion, but like I used to really struggle with that. And I just wanted people to love themselves and love their life and create a life that they loved. And so for me, that's why I shared yoga. Like it wasn't just like yoga, and doing the poses. It was like, let me create a studio and a community where people really get to fall in love with themselves. They get to make the changes that they're desiring for a space of like just really waking up to be happy on our beautiful planet. And so with that, like going from like my own journey with where I was at and then finally being able to offer that to the world, I owned the yoga studio, created it from nothing, and owned it for like the next 8 years. And in 2018, and that was actually a couple of years after I'd met you guys. So in the interim, I think about 5 or 6 years in, I started getting kind of antsy. Like I was like, okay, I like yoga, but like there's something else. There's something more, and something more that like is gonna like hone my skills more for the world. And that's when I found transformational work. And that's obviously how, we met. And so adding that in and just adding like that ball of fire of energy into everything. And then that's when I started really coaching and facilitating and kind of like, I guess you could say like changing my focus. So it wasn't so much that I didn't still have the same mission. It's just the tools that I used were so much stronger from my point of view and so much more potent and like more my speed. And so really over the last I guess it's 4 years, almost 5 years technically, there's been this like evolution of, I do dynamic potent energy work with people, and facilitating and coaching. And there's still this underlying energy of having somebody fall in love with themselves and create a life that they love. But a lot of times it's not where somebody comes to me at. They come to me because they're stressed and they're frustrated with a certain part of their life that maybe they've used all these tools before, but they kind of just can't change it. And so then they're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to like get a session with you and that will turn into like long-term work together. Or sometimes people are like, I want to have more confidence in my business and I've seen where you've grown and like, I want to work with you. So a lot of times people will come to me about the love, about the money, about the stress, about, just I'm fed up. What do I do? And so we'll begin there, but really at the end of the day, and I'm still continuing to like find this myself, is it's all about really loving yourself, really like loving your life and transforming it, even as you love it, because there's always more growth and more possible, and really dynamically having your own back. It's like, it sounds so or it can sound so kind of like cliche to be like, just love yourself, but no, really, like when you really, yeah, go ahead.
So to pause there real quick, because I already hear, we're two guys from Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? like we understand what you're talking about, but we also understand where we come from, and we understand that a lot of people who come from where we come from, what you're saying right now sounds crazy to a lot
Oh
of people.
yeah, it sounds so airy fairy.
It sounds so airy fairy, all those things. So, and I am so excited to talk about these things because we don't always get the chance to go here with people. So, but before we do, so for those people who are going like, well, what do you mean energy work? What do you mean loving myself? Like, I'm just trying to get paid. I'm trying to get this paper.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like all this, like the people who are not, who are right now listening to this, I'm like, what is this chick talking about? Can you can you set the stage so
I
they can
can.
open up and we can then move forward?
I can. I'm so happy you're asking this because you're so right. In 2016, so I'd owned the yoga studio, and it was maybe like a half a year before I met you guys. I was fed up. I was barely making enough money to pay my bills. I had been single for 5 years. It was before I, had my long-term relationship. And I literally was in the place that you just mentioned. And I really kind of lost this like sense of this joy with spirituality, because I was like, okay, I'm doing all these things to like make me a better person, thinking, okay, yes, there's that, but also having a greater life. Like I want the stuff, I want the money, I want the happiness, I want the man, right? And I'm like, WTF of magnitude, like none of that's here. And I always knew though that it wasn't about working harder, because I had done that. I'd put in the 18 to 20 hour days. I was doing all of the like Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie, and I had a business mentor and all this stuff. And I was like, the thing that's missing is honestly like my alignment, because I'm a potent, what? I don't know if you can cuss on your podcast.
Please do whatever you want. Yes, please.
I'm like, because I'm a potent bitch. Like I know that. And when I'm aligned, mountains move. So why am I 5 and 6 years into entrepreneurship still struggling with money? Honestly, worried about if my company's going to, go bankrupt, stressed as fuck. And I just knew, I was like, I don't think it's about another strategy, because I've done like 25 of them. I don't think it's about grind it out, because I have to sleep at least 4 hours a night, And that's when I turned inward, and I found something called the access bars, which are phenomenal. And it's a technique that when these points are lightly touching your head, you let go of your subconscious thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that have been in the way. And, hopefully, and probably a lot of your listeners know that like your subconscious, that's what's running the show. So it's like, if that's filled with trash and junk and all the stuff, good luck trying to make them more money. Good luck trying to be happy. Good luck trying to have even a good time out with your boys at night. You know what I mean? It's like, there's gonna be so much junk in there that you're literally getting in your own way. And so as that starts,
can you draw that connection, assuming the people who don't know, can you draw that connection between what is, because you also mentioned alignment, what is the connection between alignment, subconscious, and what it is and why it stores certain things, and why, depending on what's in there, you can see that represented in your life?
Yeah.
Can you break that down for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I say this totally like not being like a psychologist or like a, therapist, and like, that's not my jam. My jam's more like the unseen and energy work. But like from what I have personally experienced and educated myself on, and then obviously talked to friends who are like therapists and psychologists and all the things, your subconscious runs, I think about, and it depends on, what study you're looking at, but about 95 to 98% of your life, more or less, plus or minus, which means like your relationships, your bank account, your job, your business, your body, your state of happiness, like literally every practical facet of life is actually being run by your subconscious. Now, under the surface, it's not the conscious conversations that are happening in your head where somebody's like, oh yeah, if I just work harder, I'll make more money. Now that would be logical, totally logical, right? If I work harder, I'm going to make more money, just using money because everybody can like relate to that example. But what somebody might not know is that's what's going on up here in their thinking mind. But subconsciously, they could actually have the belief, if I receive more money, then I'll lose love. My family won't accept, like these weird beliefs that are like actually underneath the surface. And that's actually some of the stuff I had to uncover. And I say that because the subconscious doesn't make sense. It's not logical, it's not linear, but it's actually what's truly creating your life. And so usually what happens with that is people go, well, okay, I get it. You know, and the people are skeptical. It's like, well, just Google, this is like facts. This isn't like my opinion. It's like, literally, this is what's going on. This is life, you know? And so I always tell people, like, you know, how do you know what's in the subconscious? Look at what's currently in your life. How much money is in your bank account? What is the ebb and flow of that? You know, how do you feel in all of your relationships? You know, what's been showing up, what's not been showing up? You know, what are the internal conversations that are happening? And literally, it's like, just imagine taking a picture of that, like a snapshot. That actually is showing you where you're at with your subconscious. Now, why is there so much emphasis on that? Because when that changes, even a little bit, magic can show up. Meaning, all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I got the raise. Oh my God, like I was having a, you know, terrible time dating, and now all of a sudden I met somebody that I really connected to. You know, it's not working on that 1 to 5% consciously that's going to get you the results. That's why so many times people feel like it's so hard and like, why am I failing? And like, I'll do another strategy, but it didn't work out. It's because you're actually not getting to the core of what's going on. And so that is alignment. That's everything, you know? Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So can you take us back to, okay, so you start hearing about this thing called access bars. You're struggling, you're barely getting by, and as you just mentioned, once you do find your alignment and you are able to let go of these subconscious narratives and belief systems, magic starts to happen. So can you share from your own experience what
Yeah.
that looked like in your life?
Yeah. So I want to preface this with, I'm not guaranteeing these results. Because I definitely, like, when I get congruent, things move. But also that's true for all of us. It's just a matter
Sure.
of, you know,
Absolutely.
congruency. So I found the access bars during my facilitator training program in 2016, December 2016. And so I added that in because I was like, God, this other stuff's changed, but why am I still broke? This sucks. And anyway, so I had my first access bars class, and you don't have to have a class, by the way. It's just, I'm the kind of person, if I have a interest or resonance with it, like I could jump in. You can certainly just get your bars run, as that's what they call like having a session. So from my first bars class, where you get your bars run twice, and then having 8 sessions after that, 1 per week, because I was like, you know what, let me just jump in and just see what's possible. I literally have nothing to lose. Like, worst case scenario, nothing changes. Okay, I'm not any worse off. Best case scenario, what if it all changes? And literally within that 8-week time frame, and I want to say it was about 3 or 4 weeks in, I had attracted my first VIP client. She was working with me so much that basically I was getting a 5-figure salary from her alone a month. My income literally went from barely getting by to like, now I've cleared my first 10K month and beyond. My happiness started dynamically becoming easier, because I've always been a positive person, but it felt like I had to really work for it before. And then I would just start naturally waking up happier. And I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't have to meditate for an hour to be happy. Like, I'm just kind of happy, you know? And then also at the time I was in a relationship, and, you know, you guys probably recall who he was. And I noticed like the triggers that I had from old relationships, those started falling away. And so it made like love between us easier and connection between us easier. So my life had changed so much. And really my biggest Achilles heel at that point was the money. It had changed so much in 8 sessions. I was like, I'm going to keep going. I've never really been all in on something. If this is what has happened, like in this little amount of time, oh my God, what's possible now? And so 4 years later, I still get my bars run every week. I have a multi-six-figure business. I'm super happy. I've dated, a few amazing men, and I'm really living my truth every single day. Like, the name of the game for me, like, increasingly becomes just more of me, more of what's possible, more of living life. And that's something that I couldn't have maybe even dreamed of years ago. And it wouldn't have been my focus because I would have been so stressed about how do I pay the bills. And because so much of that's changed, it's really allowed me the luxury of living and going, what am I here to contribute? I don't have to worry about the light bill anymore. So it really created this like tangible result in my life that allowed me to go into the intangible, And as far as like clients and stuff, like, one of my favorite stories of transformation was this woman who was in a marriage for, I think, about 10 years to a narcissist. And anybody who knows anything about narcissists, that is a very difficult thing to get out of, sometimes darn near impossible, And they had divorced. I think they'd been divorced for about 5 years, but she was still like, honestly, constantly like in a PTSD loop. I could tell it with her behavior, with how she would talk about it, how much it would trigger her when they would communicate because they share a child. And literally because of me running her bars, one thing that the bars does, it actually, I don't know how to say this, but I'm trying to like, not be a doctor and prescribe, but like basically like it gets you out of where you have like PTSD in your life. Like it just erases it. So you no longer have to manage wherever you're having like those struggles. You actually go beyond that. So where she was able to transform is actually having a good relationship with her ex, no longer being triggered by him, being happy. They're both co-parenting with success, and to like see somebody who was like in a narcissistic trap out of that, literally because the bar, that's the only thing that she does. I was like, I knew that was possible, but to see it in somebody else, I was like, wow. And this is just one of many examples with that or money. Like I had one client, really potent woman, and she had her a business for like a year. She was a coach. And she did coaching with women primarily. She had a business for a year and she made no money. And I was like, break this down to me. I mean, now we're struggling with money, but what do you mean no money? It's a whole different ballgame. And she had all these stories because was like really entrenched in her church. And it was all these stories of like, you can't charge and like total craziness. And I was like, all right. I was like, if you want to change this, I know that actually your work with me, my work with you will do this. But first and foremost, do you actually want to change this? And she's like, yes. Literally, we had, I want to say it was 3 sessions. And I was, so we're running the bar, I'm running her bars and I'm, helping her with her, her sales pitch and all this stuff. And she comes in the next week and she goes, I just closed $15,000 in sales. I was like, what? I was like, I know, but once again, I'm seeing it like live out. And I said, okay, how much in cash? How much did you actually clear? And she goes, I cleared about 5K, but 15 totals coming in. And I was like, that's why I love bars. That's why I do what I do.
So I feel like we should just turn off this podcast and just have a conversation between the 3 of us. Because, but seriously, I mean, that's incredible. And we will definitely have an offline conversation. But I want to go a little deeper here because you're talking about, well, one, can you explain what bars is first, and then we can move forward, and what writing bars is and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a technique called the access bars, and not a lot of people are familiar with it, even though it's been around since 1995. I personally love it because from everything I've been trained in, all the woo-woo modalities, I don't even get into it, but like all the things, this to me is the fastest. It creates the most change, which is the point, and it's the most effective. And so with that, so there are actually points on your head where you store electromagnetically all of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs. So it's essentially like the direct highway into your subconscious. It's all the things that like you kind of push to the side that you don't know you push aside, or old conversations, what happened in your childhood, right? All this crazy stuff, right? And so when these points are lightly touched by a practitioner, which I am, one, you start to release them. And the thing that actually attracted me to this modality, unlike like a cognitive behavior therapy or EMDR or something like that, is you actually don't have to identify when, where, how, because the problem with modalities like that, although they're amazing and effective and have their place, is if you can't pinpoint when it was, or the therapist, you're kind of like SOL. You know what I mean? And so with this, it's like literally you can lay there, have a practitioner touch these points lightly, and they just like move around on your head, different points. It's super relaxing. And you literally wake up and you feel lighter, you feel more relaxed. Most people are like, whoa, I feel so good. And the real work of it all is you start to let go of all these things that have been blocking exactly what you wanted to have in your life. You know, maybe you hate your boss and you're like, if I could just get rid of my boss, my life would be good. Well, you're going to get rid of your points of view about your boss, and that'll change things. You know what I mean? That's how they work. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And it's crazy. Like, I want to preface this, like, I'm a person that believes in like magic. And I put that in quotations because I've had things happen to me in my life where I'm just like this takes a lot more than just logical sense to make it seem reality. And I know a lot of people probably like are thinking that as they're listening, it's just like, this sounds like some fucking magic. And I don't know how to make sense of it because it's out of my normal state. And I wanted to ask, like, how much buy-in does someone have to have for it to actually work? Because I'm a big fan of the placebo effect. I know that the nocebo effect that actually exists, and there's studies out there of this. Folks can look at Joe Dispenza. He's done a lot of work in this space. But yeah, like, does that affect someone from these access bars actually working for them? Is actually being bought into it and believing that is actually going to work, where it creates this pathway for them to have this magic happen.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you asked that question. And this is why I'm going to say it from an experiential and actually a study standpoint. There actually is a study. So Dr. Jeffrey Fannin is a neuroscientist, and he did like an in-depth study about like what actually happens with the brain and neural pathways and all this stuff during the bars. And one of the things that they took a look at was, does your buy-in, you know, does your belief in this working actually change it? And they actually had a study where people were like, basically, this is hogwash, this is crap, but okay, here I am. And they still saw results with their anxiety. It had to do with anxiety and depression, which, by the way, if anybody struggles with that, get your bars run. They are phenomenal for everything, but dynamically those two things. So there's actually that's actually been studied. Now, experience-wise with my clients, to me, it, like, I always tell people, if you're willing to come, and I'm very clear with people. I'm like, I compare it to going to the gym. I'm like, you know, you wouldn't go to the gym. Nobody would go to the gym one time and go, oh, didn't get my dream body. The gym's is like, you know, it's a scam. Like, nobody would say that. You'd go, oh, I didn't want to go. I was lazy. Like, it was my fault. You know what I mean? Whatever. Like, nobody would go, oh, the gym doesn't work. But yet we do it with these things that are kind of like unseen, right? It's like, oh, my head's being touched. This is kind of weird, which I totally get. So I always tell somebody, you know, I recommend, for me, because I've seen this kind of pattern with people, 8 to 12 sessions to really give it a try. At that point, what I've noticed with my clients, I've had hundreds of clients the last 4 years, there's usually a first tipping point around 3 to 4 sessions. There's a next tipping point for people around 6 to 8 sessions. And then usually about the 12 mark. And at that point, some people have had so much noticeable change in their life. Oh my God, I'm happier. Oh my God, that thing that used to trigger me every day at work isn't there. Oh my God, like, I'm not feeling triggered in my relationship. Like, I mean, let's be honest, most people change because there's something painful in their life they want to get away from. So enough for that pain starts to melt away to where they're like, I actually didn't think this was possible, but I know you, or I like you, or I trust you, or I kind of see like how you're living. So I was like, man, I'm going to go for it. But at that point, like, they've experienced so much actual real change that they're like, let me keep going. You know, so I always tell people, you don't have to believe in it. Give me ideally at least 8 sessions. If you want to be a little more conservative, 3, you will see something. I always tell people the only way that you won't see something is if you literally do not come. And I've been noticed, actually, you know, because I'd love to say like I just enroll everybody into working with me, but I don't. And so the people that I could really tell, because, you know, guys, doing this kind of work, like, you really have to be able to kind of read somebody on the front side. There have been a couple of people that have, you know, come in for a trial session And I could tell they were so actually scared of the change you were looking for. They were scared to not have the stress. It's because at that point it's like, well, who am I without this? It doesn't work, but it's so entrenched in their identity that they actually know that will leave. And a lot of times people think like, if this part of my identity leaves, that I'm broke or I struggle in relationship or I, hate my job or this family drama or whatever, they actually are terrified to lose themselves. They actually have this underlying point of view that I'll lose me. And so there's only been 2 people I can actually think of in the last 4 years that didn't come back because I could tell they were like too terrified that it actually was going to work. Everybody else, they're actually up for it and then it works. Like I've literally never had somebody on my table that didn't have change happen, period. It doesn't happen.
It's so fascinating you're talking about this, because as we do here, we keep it real at the end of the podcast. That is definitely something that I have become to be more aware of within myself, in the sense that, and we praise hustle here. Like we love hustle. We love, we love David Goggins. We love Cameron Haynes. We love these guys because they just hustle their faces off. And I actually come from a past of not being a hustler. Like I was a pretty lazy kid. No one really taught me hustle. And so I had to kind of teach it to myself. And now I kind of wear it as a badge. Mm-hmm. And of most recently, I've been starting to notice where that takes me down the wrong path. Yeah. In the sense that, for example, like me, I'm not sure, I think you were around. Do you remember Nikita? Nikita also did Next Level.
I think I do.
Yeah. So he's from out here in New York as well. Shout out to Nikita. He is the homie. And we were at his house last weekend. And it was just a boys' day. We all worked out. We all did some ecstatic dance. And then we did a Joe Dispenza meditation. Wow. And it was a really, like I've done his meditations before and they're really powerful, but on this one, it was like just really, really strong. And I haven't done it in a long time. And I had never connected so deeply to the vision that I want for myself. Mm-hmm. And what that did was it made me realize how little I actually, like when you look at it from a physiological perspective, how little I actually want that thing. Meaning that I really do want that thing, mm-hmm. but the way I act on it is mm-hmm. not to the degree of what I actually want. Like the frequency of what it is that I want and how I choose to move towards it is completely not, like you said, in alignment. And that has been fucking with me. And it really did. It fucked with me really hard because I was like, damn, I'm always saying I want this type of life. But the way I feel when I'm talking about this is like everything's a grind all of the time. Yeah. Which I don't mind. Like I really do enjoy the hustle, but at one point is that stifling me from enjoying the things that I say I want to have in my life.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you said that because, I'd love to pretend like I'm perfect and don't still have those moments of expansion, but I'd be lying if I didn't. Like I live the work. And so it's like years ago, to just keep it simple, it's like I was here hoping for here. Now I'm here and I'm looking at same thing. Like, okay, like real talk. Like I've been saying I have this income goal and so it's this constant like expansion. And so yes to what you're saying. And I know for me, like I'm personally a big Gary Vee fan because I love intense. I'm intense, and it's like, and honestly, part of the reason that like really had me looking at this even more was because the first 5 to 6 years of my business, I hustled so much and I wore it like a badge of honor. I was like, I'm not lazy. I'm like self-made. Like I'm doing these things. And of course I had the stress behind the scenes, but as a community and a leader in my community here, people were like, oh my God, And so honestly, what got me to change was I really started facing burnout. Like I was literally on the brink of, I physically can't do this anymore. And the idea of going to corporate America, because it wasn't my truth, not that there's anything wrong with corporate America. I always tell people, do you. Entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, but if it's for you, the idea of going back to get a job, it feels like you're going to die. And so I really knew that like I had to start looking at working smarter and not harder because I had worked hard. And so I always tell people, like, don't get rid of the things that you like or that work for you. Like, we're all built differently, right? And especially being like masculine men, like there's a certain like energy that you have. And it's like, I think it's great to express that. But for me, where this work comes in is it just gets you more effective. It's like David Goggins as a hustler, but he didn't get to like top tier without like the congruency aspect of it, even if that's not what he's like selling, so to speak. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, this is, you know, jacking me up. So that's different. That's a side conversation anyway. So like, okay, so what do you, so what does this mean when you look at the world, right? When you look, because what I'm hearing you say is that most of our issues are self-inflicted. Most of our issues with ourselves and with our relationships, like you used that that woman who's married to a narcissist, for example. Like, so much of her hangups with him really didn't have to do with him. It had to do with her own experiences, and once she was able to let those go, her actual experience of him was nothing like it initially. And we're seeing a lot of that, right? We're seeing a lot of ourselves projected on what is going on in the world, and we're creating stories around that.
Yeah.
So what do you see? I mean, you know, it's in an ideal world, everyone's got access bars, everyone's got a practitioner, and we can all get it done. But are there other practices that you're aware of that people can take into their lives right now, who, because I'm sure everyone, I can confidently say everyone is somehow projecting whatever is going on in the world onto their friends, onto their family, onto their politicians, onto their bosses, everyone. So what can people start doing now to start reconciling with this?
I am so happy you're asking this, because I'm like, I didn't expect to talk about bars the whole time, because I love the bars. Fine, I'm gonna run. If you're here in Ohio, come see me. But it's not about that. It's actually about what it is that you just said. And you know, and wow, I always share with people, start with where you're at and start with what's fun for you. So for example, if meditation's really fun for somebody, don't stop doing it just because I'm sitting here talking about the bars. Like, maybe add that in, but like, keep doing what is working for you, or keep doing what is very easy for you to access like now. So for example, like anybody could pull up a meditation, get meditation on YouTube and start receiving like the relaxation benefits of it. The reason why I say meditation is because, you know, whether you're into it or not, it's obviously so mainstream now. It's so easy to access. It doesn't require you spending money. So it's like, let's make this easy on people, right? And it is effective. Works differently than the bars, but it's still going to benefit you, period. So, you know, look up a free meditation. I also have an amazing holiday bundle, but that's a story for another time.
We will leave that in the show notes. Thank you.
You know, also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think you guys will really appreciate this, is move your body. So this has been so much more relevant than what I've realized. And body and mind are different, but yet they dynamically affect one another. And so I always tell people, you know, if you're ruminating, if you're stressed, if you're like head tripping about something, move your body. You have so much excess energy going in the opposite direction of what you want. Like, a lot of times, you know, go running, like, you know, do yoga, like get like, not like you're trying to get rid of your energy, but it's like redistribute it in a way that's more effective for you. That's obviously, they're going to have this positive chemical effect on you, boost your mood, all the things. So I think a lot of times we actually overcomplicate it. You know, I made this joke with one of my friends who has the sweetest little 3-year-old boy. And I was watching him throw a tantrum one day, and he was just so cute. And because he's also like a really well-behaved kid. And she doesn't make him wrong for it. So he's like screaming and crying, and then he settled down and he got to play and he was all happy. And I thought, literally, how many of us adults, myself included, because once again, I'm on the journey. I'm in a different place than I was years ago, but it's not like I'm just sitting over here like perfect and vibrating like an ascended master. I'm still a human, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I said, how many adults literally just need to scream and cry and play? And that would take care of like 80% of the shit going on for people, you know? And so it's like, I encourage people, like, play, lighten up, let yourself laugh, turn on the comedy shows, stop watching the news. Like, I don't watch it. I won't. Like, the world's crazy. There's a lot of change happening right now. Stop hooking yourself into that like negative plug that's literally sucking your life force. You know what I mean? So it's like meditate, play, move your body. You know, start looking for things that just bring you joy. I think we overcomplicate it. It doesn't require, I mean, okay, so two things. To have positive change in your life, it doesn't require you spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And also to get the effects and like, I'll say the rapid change I'm talking about. Yeah, there's a reason why I do what I do. Okay. But, you know, somebody today can go, I'm going to go watch my favorite, you know, comedian on Netflix. I'm going to work out for 30 minutes. I'm going to maybe do a Joe Dispenza, you know, meditation on YouTube, and boom, wow, I feel better. So we literally have access to things right now. And I'm a big believer in helping yourself as somebody else helps you or contributes to you. So I share with my clients, like, you know, don't make me the one who's changing you. You're coming to me because yes, this technique works fabulously, but still every day, like, you know, put your happiness first, make yourself the priority, because it's actually not selfish. It's actually very selfless when you put yourself first. You can, you know, once again, your quality of life goes up and then affects other people. But really just don't overthink it. What brings you lasting joy, and then just do it. And then be willing to explore more in the process, you know, with something like this, a bars, you know, session or another technique that, you know, somebody might resonate with.
Yeah, what you're saying is so fascinating. And I think what's underlying for people to understand, and, you know, correct me if I'm off kilter here, but basically the work is bringing your frequency to the place where of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be in the place right now of where you want. And that, you know, back to like a Kita's house, that it has been something that I'm noticing is my next, like, that is my next stage of development, because there's, you know, there's like things, it's so crazy. There's like the like laws of life, like the laws of the game of life are so simple and are repeated all the time. But like the stage at which you understand it is different based on what stage of consciousness you're in.
Oh, true.
So you can hear something and be like, oh, I know what to do with that. And then you do what you think is right for that. But then at a different stage, it's the same thing, but you have to do something completely different.
So
and so for me, it's really uncomfortable, because even though I've played in this world of frequency, I understand it. I've read books about it. I've done things with it. There's always been a level of skepticism. And so this is like for my people who hear this, like I too, even though like I have Natalie on, like, bro, I'm about to fight, but you know, there is still an internal level of like, it is hard work. Like, it's not about, like, energy is great, but I need to work to get there. So
can I speak into that with like a couple really good points with that?
Yeah.
So two things. You are right where it says it takes work. So one thing, and this is actually what was tripping me up way prior to, this is probably 2 or 3 years into having the yoga studio, years before I had the access bars. There are the people, and I think sometimes this work kind of gets like a bad rap, where they're like, it's just, I think about it and then it just appeared and I did nothing, and there was a knock at my door and there was a pile of money. No. Now, if anybody's ever experienced this, please directly email me. I want to talk to you. But this is not about eliminating the actual action. So think about somebody like a Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Like top tier entrepreneur, like crazy, like hustle, like New York all the way, right? This like very like East Coast personality. Like he, to me, he's like one of the definitions of like a hard worker. But he loves so much what he does, and he always talks about how much like it's about the love of it and the happiness of it. There's a reason why he keep working so hard, because it's actually fun for him. So to me, that frequency of fun is actually what I'm talking about, like in a very indirect way that makes, for example, the love of the hard work that much more fun and that much more of like, oh my God, like let's do this, you know? So in no way am I saying eliminate action. No, that is actually one of the quickest ways to absolutely sabotage results in your life, 100%. The other piece about that is the self-doubt, which is actually the energy of how skepticism shows up. And this is something I had to look at. I mean, trust me, like when I first found this, I was like, is this really going to work? I was like, I've done like my whole, like, you know, limiting conversation, nerd conversation as we used to call it, right? Like was like, I've done it all. Like I have a yoga studio, I've been training this and that and the other, I'm doing this. Like, well,
That's
that
me,
really
bro.
worked.
I have that same conversation. I literally go, I've heard everything. Like
Yeah.
I've done everything. I've tried everything, you know?
Yeah. And that was me in 2016, which was arrogant and doubtful. and actually what I had to like look at, and I didn't even know until like I had, you know, some time outside of that space, was actually realizing that was the story that was sabotaging my goals. It wasn't whether the thing was going to work or not. It was, I was so doubtful of my life actually changing, of the goal attainment, that was actually the story that was fucking me up. And so when I had my bars drawn and it just goes away, and it's not like on session 2, this story goes away. No, I mean, like literally, like there's no rhyme and reason how things change. It's just your internal conversations do. And then you're living life differently. Your frequency is different. And then you're actually achieving what it is that you wanted to. So when that changed for me, I was like, holy shit, that was like one of my biggest sabotages to my goals, was actually the doubt. And the doubt shows up in the form of the skepticism towards something else, but actually you're actually being skeptical to you. It's actually what's underneath that, which is such a mofo. Like it sucks.
It's crazy to me about listening to this, and obviously a lot of this brings up for me like family, because like obviously your family will be always the ones to have the most skepticism. I bring back the story of Next Level and being in a VIP, and you're trying to get people to come and do it, and you're like talking to family, and they just so much self-doubt, so much like rejection, like I don't believe in that, that's not my thing, yada yada yada. You hear all the excuses when we're doing this, and it makes me think like people in those areas, they don't decide to make change until something so drastic happens to them, it's too late to come back for it. Whether that's a death of a family member, a loss of a well-paying job, and they've, you know, I have 2 cars and a big ass house and all these things, and now I don't have a job. What am I supposed to do? Oh my God, they freak out, and then that's that moment. And that's what happened to me when I came back from China, and I was like in deep debt, and you know, Dougie called me and was just like, you should do this thing. And I was in such a deep, dark hole that I was like, you know what? I'm willing to try fucking anything. And me and Jesse spoke about this. If I was in a better place, if I was where I am at today and Dougie called me with the same thing back then, I would have probably said no.
Yep.
I would have been very skeptical, very doubtful about that working for me, and been like, I'm good. I have everything I need. Bam, and done, and hung up the phone.
Yeah.
But people wait till that last minute. People wait till the worst thing happens to them to make this change. So it's like, I don't know if you can speak on that. Like how can, whether that's going to access bars, trying out meditation, trying all these different things out, you're so doubtful of these things working. And, you know, you can tell them all you want, like, oh, try it out. This is how it worked for me. This is how it worked for Jesse. This is how it worked for Natalie. Check out this podcast. Trust me. And they're like, yeah, cool. I'll check it out. And they never do.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I like love everything you guys are saying. Cause it's like, it's just so everything that comes up for people. And I forget because my life changed so much. And like I said, it's not that I don't have threads of those conversations happening. And I like to be very real with people. Like it's about that. Imagine if like somebody came in the room and they were like, oh my God, there's like a purple elephant outside knocking at your door. I just delivered Christmas presents. And there was also a dragon behind it. You go, okay. And be like, are they high? Like, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't even believe it. Right. So it's not that I'm walking around and I have no self-limiting thoughts, but the dynamic difference is I don't believe them.
Mm.
So when you actually have no hook, no charge, no like whatever, life totally changes. So with that said, most people, and this is how we're wired. I mean, it's how I found the bars. I was like, I'm 36. I think it was 35, 36 at the time. I was like, I'm broke as fuck. I feel like a loser. This is so uncomfortable. And literally, if I don't get my shit together, I might lose everything. So similar, right? And so as people, we're wired to move away from pain. It's a whole different space of consciousness to actually just be in choice and go, I'm just going to move towards the possibility, or for me, because I'm a woman, like towards the pleasure, you know? I'm not saying you as men don't like pleasure, but I don't think it's much as much of a conversation in a man's world than it maybe is in a feminine woman's world, you know? And so it's like, you know, so there is this thing where as a species, we are wired that honestly comfort is like the death of our goals. And that's something I've had to look at incrementally as my life became easier. I had to find a new why. Like it was no longer, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. It was like, ooh, I'm like making money and I'm like flying places and I'm actually living. Like, this is fun. Okay. That why of moving away from the pain went away. Ooh, where's my motivation? And I really then, so I had to actually work on that. And like, so now where I'm at with things is the pain of not having what's possible is so painful for me. Like I'm just in this like go for it, like it's all about just like go for it, like whatever's required, like get the fuck out of my own way and like make it happen. But it's no longer because my life's terrible, it's because my life's working so much that like why would I stop here? So part of it's just our way we're wired as a species. Part of it's then when you get out of that pain and you're actually in the zone of like your life working, or if that's where somebody's at, like, well, I have the marriage and like the like 2 luxury cars and I have my, you know, C-level executive job. Why would I change? Well, you actually don't have to. I tell people that you actually don't have to. Sometimes from my experience and how I've changed these last few years in my business is like, I keep it moving. I'm not interested in convincing somebody they need to change. What I'm calling in is a people who, no matter where they're at in their journey, they're like, yeah, I'm looking for what's next. Oh, and this can make it easier for me. Cool. I'm all about it. That's what I'm interested in being with people. So, so yeah, I mean, you really have to evolve your self conversations and your motivation as life gets better. Otherwise that'll be like your biggest sticking point is like the pain of losing what you now have versus the pain of gaining when you had nothing and your back was up against the wall.
What I hear going through people's minds right now as they're listening to this is how that sounds so monumental in the sense that like I only from my experience of myself and of others, there's I feel like a lot of people go through a lot of guilt and shame for who they are.
Oh yeah.
And are deeply tied to their family's guilt and shame, and the ability to cut yourself off from that. Because even though, okay, I'm saying guilt and shame, but what I'm really saying is like,
oh, yeah.
when you have those conversations about, well, you know, I can't do this because I got to take care of my mother. I got to take care of my father. I got to make sure I'm there for these people, and I got to make sure I'm there for that people. And how can I really go for all these things that I want? Because if I really did go for everything I wanted, I'd have to end everything that is right now. You know what I mean? I'd have to end everything that is right now. If I really took, and then on top of that, it's like, and if I did that, I would fail and it would be terrifying, and then I'd have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is beautiful.
I can speak into that.
Yeah, please do, because yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, how did they know these are like things I thought along the way? Because I'm so far removed from it. I'm like, this is brilliant. Because I remember like, I don't know, 2.5 years ago, like similar thing, right? So it's like, that's actually the lie. I had it too. The lie is if I actually go for what I want, if I actually expand into my dreams and really what I'd like to have, then I have to cut everybody off. No, you don't. What people don't realize is, and I've actually had to look at this, like I used to have a deep rejection story, and it still pops up every now and again. Once again, as you expand, right, you have more things that reveal themselves, like, oh, this is the next version of you. Okay, here are the things in the way of it, right? So once again, I'm still evolving as a person. And my rejection story and abandonment story that I had years ago dynamically has changed, and like so much that's gone away. And I say that because I had a similar fear. Like, if I really do this thing, will I lose this person, or will I lose the money, or, you know, I finally have this one thing and like that'll change. But people actually don't realize, and I say this because this actually is a space I work with my clients and I work with myself, is what people don't realize that are afraid to lose something is they're actually the ones doing the loss, if that makes sense. Like you actually can get an energy about you that says, I'm going to shut the door and you can't be here anymore. And when people actually either are willing to believe what I just said, or they actually have that awareness themselves, then what you do is you go, oh, I can actually bring everybody with me. That doesn't mean that people are going to get it. Doesn't mean they're going to be about it. Doesn't mean they're going to be excited for you. You can still have a conversation that says, hi, how you doing? How's the kids? Oh, how's your football team doing this Sunday, right? You can still engage with them and connect with them however you were doing. But what people don't realize is you don't have to exclude what you have to get to the next level. You just have to be willing to expand into it and still welcome everybody else along. And that's actually something very personal I had to get over. Like, I'd say in the last 2 to 3 years, probably more like 2 years, that was actually something that I had to do because I was constantly cutting off things in my life to go to that next place. And then I was like, oh, why is that doesn't really work? And then what I realized was, once again, oh, I'm doing that. They're not leaving me. I'm leaving them, and then it was like, how about I don't do that anymore? And then it was like, and yes, relationships shift, maybe somebody that used to be your best friend just becomes a good friend. Or maybe there is that person that leaves your life, but I've never spoke to somebody who's truly had somebody like leave their life or a thing really leave their life that long-term would have been a good thing for them, and without getting into too much detail, I had a long-term relationship end about a year and a half ago, totally out of the blue. At the time, I mean, I like really worked the tools. I was literally getting my bars on every day. I was like, fuck this. I was like in it, I was like really at the time upset. But in a very short amount of time after, a 3-year relationship, about 3 or 4 months afterwards, I was like, this was such a blessing. And not because he was a bad guy. He was a really good guy. But the reality of it is once I had gotten, once like the pain of that had dissipated because of using the tools that I use, I got to see, oh my God, there's so much more available now. There's actually so much more that brings me joy. And I started to create it. So I say that because literally, once again, at least with people I've worked with, 100% of the time, like they're not lamenting what was, and they might start there. But once they're actually happier, once they're getting the things that they've wanted, once the people that they really do love do come along with them, they're like, oh yeah, that thing that I was super attached to, I'm actually good. So, it does take a leap of faith to really face yourself. I mean, really at the end of the day, we're talking about facing yourself, and it's scary as shit, but also I always like to tell people, the knock gets louder. I mean, I know I've experienced this. It's like, first it starts off with a whisper, then it's like a touch, then it's like a slap, then it's like a backhand, then it's like you wreck your car and you're like, all right, I need to wake the fuck up. Like, what am I not doing? And I say that from personal experience. And so for me now, I'm at a place where I listen to the whispers because I know life will continue to crunch me. And how that can show up for people is, why am I drinking more? Why am I even maybe partying more? Why am I, and I'm just going to keep it very like real and very basic. I don't know like the scope of your audience, but like real life shit. Like, why am I thinking about cheating on my partner? Why am I really unhappy? Why am I sabotaging this? Because it's like the level of unhappiness and self-sabotages. So it's crunching you so much to basically get you to wake up that until you do, life will become more not fun and more of a shit show. And so I share with people, like, if you're just willing to like basically take a leap of faith and try something new, whatever that is, those things will either start to fall away, change, no longer be attractive to you, and you'll actually start having the life that you want to have.
Wow, I love it. This is great. No, this is so great. For me, especially. I don't like, yeah, go ahead, Ruben, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm speechless. I actually don't know how to follow up yet. Give me a minute.
I was gonna say, I'm so grateful for you guys because I know when I engage with people, like I'm always asked wonderful questions, but these questions are so relevant. And I forget because so much of my life has changed. And you guys ask questions in a way that I know will so connect your audience. And like I'm like you guys, I'm like, let's keep it real. Let's talk about the real shit, right? Did you get high last night? Did you cheat on somebody? What's your bank account look like? Like, let's keep it fucking real, or like whatever. Yeah. But it's like, and that's why like I'm just grateful for like you guys having this space because there's other possibilities,
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Those whispers, That's something I'm not sure if you ever heard of Paul Chek. He's one of my biggest men, and he calls it the pain teacher. And basically, that's exactly what it is. The pain teacher starts with a knock, then a bigger knock, and then one day he just kicks the door down, and
Yeah.
you better wake the fuck up. When you look at knowing what you know, knowing everything you know, and how transformation happens. When you look at the process that we are going through as a nation.
Whew.
You have to go there. You have to go there.
Gotta go there. When you look at the process that we're going through as a nation, I've heard people refer to this as an ayahuasca trip, in the sense that if you've ever done ayahuasca, or if you've ever done any psychedelic, you know that there is a part where shit is, climactic and it's crazy and you think you're gonna die and you actually might have died, you don't even know, and you're back into your body, and then afterwards you're like, holy shit, how did I not know all of this? Oh my God, blah 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 blah. So using your using your vocabulary and what you know, can you explain what you've been noticing as you've seen this evolution?
100%. God, I love that. So first of all, I just want to say ayahuasca is one of the few things I haven't done. And not because I'm against it at all. Like, I have many friends who have done it. It's just, honestly, I think I'm such a control freak that, I'm like, hey, like, there's so much change that happens at the bars. Nah, I'll do Aya if she calls me. But I get her potency because I have friends that have done it and have raved about it. Right. So anyway, with that said, with our nation, and I'll actually expand that into the world. I was actually having this conversation with somebody maybe about a month and a half ago. I said, oh my God, you know what's going on? I said, if you really peel back and look at the 40,000 foot view, so beyond the true injustices happening, beyond the institutions that need to change, like, let's really get to that high level view or the soul level view or what collective unconscious view, because really
let's get meta, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's get meta. I said, it's like a whole bunch of people right now on the planet that have never given a shit about healing work, don't have the tools, don't want to have the tools. They've lived their lives completely just like, if I can't see it or feel it or touch it, I'm good. And they went for the trip, exactly what you're saying, the ayahuasca trip they didn't know they signed up for. And now it's like, holy fucking shit. And the rest of us who have the tools, or whatever tools to degree that we have, we're like, okay, it's trippy. Because yeah, it's been a wild year. And honestly, because of the tools that I have, I can say, personally speaking, every single area of my life actually personally got greater. I made more money. I have more happiness. I have so many amazing, beautiful experiences, new friendships. And yet I still feel the insanity and the level of uncomfort on the planet. Like, it's palpable. Like, I feel it every day. And yet I'm not affected by it. I didn't go down the road of depression. I don't have anxiety. I didn't lose, all the stuff that other people are experiencing. So I say that because literally when I look at our planet, I'm like, there's a whole bunch of people that realize they signed up for a massive healing trip that are on this ride right now, that are like fighting it tooth and nail, that if they literally just were like, fuck it, I'm going to try something. I'm going to like maybe try self-reflection. I'll try these crazy things they're talking about. I might turn on a YouTube meditation. Their life would start to get better. And I say that because we're only a nation because we're made up of individuals. So as each person changes their life, changes their vibration, I know changing your life can be like this big sweeping thing. You're like, fuck changing my life. I'm just trying to like not kill my kids tonight at dinner. You know what I mean? But it's like, so I use the word like changing your life very broadly. So please, anybody listening, like make it specific and individual to you and like what's most important to you now. But it's like, as we change, as we're happier, as we don't have the stress, as we don't want to kill people, as we're not reacting as much, we are making the nation. We are then having a different conversation. We're treating each other differently. We're demanding different things show up politically. So it's like, it's so relevant. And I'm once again kind of going back to where we started off from. It's like, I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm just saying, do what works for you, find something that works for you. And at that point, you will start to experience life differently. So I was actually talking to a good friend last night who actually has gone through the work, and she's this amazing like sensuality coach. And even though she's like rocking in her business, like multiple 6-figure years, like just had a $45,000 month, like all these things, she was like, I am so stressed. And she like kind of is hooked into the doom and gloom. And I said, you know what, I'm not. I said, because number one, it doesn't work. Hooking into the doom and gloom doesn't actually change it. And when I actually got that, like really got it in my body, it wasn't just a thought anymore. I said, that's why I started prioritizing my joy. And I really actually get that if I want to be a true contribution to our world, getting out of insane shit that's going on, I truly need to actually raise my frequency. I actually need to be happy. That's not just personal, I'm selfish and fuck everybody else. That's like, no, for real. Like if we want to earth, we have to do that. And I said, and also I said, the thing that people misidentify and misapply is that they think they have to fight something for it to change. But yet we all know the cliche statement that I'm sure we've all said, or most of us said, which is what you resist persists. So why are we resisting all of this insane shit to just have it persist when actually the name of the game is shifting your focus entirely onto what will work, what will bring you joy, because joy is increasing your frequency, and actually just creating the new. You know, that looks different to different people, but that right there, as individuals, the more as individuals we do that, the collective will change. And I actually think that's what we're in the middle of right now. It just looks like the ultimate shit show because there's so much unconsciousness up. But you're right. It's like people don't know what the fuck to do. You know, and that's why we're having these conversations.
I love what you're saying, Natalie. And what it brought up for me was that in the summer, between like mid-July to like late August, I was going through massive anxiety because I was in that. Like I was looking at the news, the COVID stuff, the Black Lives Matter, the political, like all this shit was just coming at me in like 1,000 miles per hour. And it was just stressing me out.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I mean, Jesse and I started, we started our season 2 of this podcast because it was season 1. We kind of took a hiatus for a bit. Then we came back. And that was part of that. I was like, I need to do something. You know, when I finally realized, it took some time, but when I finally realized, I was like, there's nothing I can do as a single person. I can do what I want to do. And maybe that can help these areas of the world in some weird way. Like all I got to do is throw my rock in that pond and the ripples will do whatever it takes. That's when Jesse and I really started to come back with the podcast, because this is one of those things that bring me joy. Then I started hiking more. We got into a very big regimen to train for a Spartan race, like all these things that I was like, oh, this is what I enjoy to do. And it all of a sudden that anxiety just like slipped away, and just I haven't felt it ever since. And part of that was, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Singer. He wrote The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
Yes. He also wrote a book called The Surrender Experiment, which I read because somebody at Next Level, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was like a random conversation.
I have to reread that book, bro. I have to reread that book. That book.
I'm like, I think I need to read it.
Amazing. And I remember reading it, and like, it's so there that like, I can visualize me sitting on the train in New York City, just like reading that book and like crying, because I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not surrendering to what I need at this moment. Instead, I'm doing the complete opposite and looking at all these like news, you know, following these channels, listening to these podcasts. I'm like, what is this doing for me? Like it's doing something to me, but it's not working for me. I need to get away from this and just surrender to what my body truly wants. And that's when I really started digging into like journaling, meditating every morning, taking long, I called them my philosopher walks, or I would take these long walks in the morning, just think with nothing. And that's what came up. Like, maybe you should start the podcast again. I think I was the one that told Jesse, I was like, yo, we should start that again. I was the one to be like, I need to do something with my body. I wanted to do a Spartan race. When I told Jesse, he like ran with it. And we were like, yes, let's do this together. And all these things started coming up for me. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna surrender to whatever you want to call it, soul, consciousness, anything that's out there, but it's definitely bigger than me. And I've had that experience. And we've talked about this with mushrooms, like the big capital me, that me that's like, this is what I want for you in this life. you need to follow the rules or else you're going to get into that car crash, like you mentioned, right? Like the little whispers and the taps, I started listening to that. I think that's part of surrendering to that experience. It's just like, what's working and what's not, and what's going to work for you. Like, yeah, these are some great, Black Lives Matter, for instance, is a great institution. There's people doing that. So like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Like, that's okay. There are people out there who see that as a big mission in their life. Great. I don't. Right? I think it's a great organization. Do you? I support it, but I don't have to be in it, And I felt like for some reason, I felt like saying that was wrong. And I was like, wait, speak your truth, bro. Like, my higher self was like, speak your truth. Go with what you want. And I think less and less people, they feel so obligated because it's all over the media and social media to do, like, be in the political space, be in the Black Lives Matter, be in all these different movements, when it becomes too much and they lose sense of who they are in a sense. So
and I want to add something to that. Like, number one, I need to read that book, so thank you. but it takes all types, and I've known as a very young age that my potency was in my love. And I don't mean that like airy fairy. I'm talking about like the difference between a Martin Luther King Jr. versus a Malcolm X. But it took two. One wasn't right over the other. They spoke to different people, they were being true to themselves though. And I've always been more, and obviously just, using this example off of what you said, like I've been on the MLK side myself, like meaning like that's more my vibe. That's kind of like how I operate. Like I'm more like a let's all unite. And just as much as there are people who are like, no, and they have that energy, and that's really true for them in whatever capacity. And I'm always like, don't make that wrong. Literally just do you, right? But like, it takes all of us. And the way that the world is going to change, and the way our world changes as individuals, is it's when we're true to ourselves. And being true to ourselves isn't I'm stressed the fuck out, isn't I'm smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It's not saying fuck you and fuck this world. And I say that stuff without judgment. Like I've smoked before, like I've lived life, I'm 41 years old. I've lived some life, I'm saying that like, but our power is in, I always say this to people, like, what's true for you. Whew. Because when you lay your head down at night, and it's right before you fall asleep, you know what you think about, you know what weighs on your heart, you know what you're avoiding, you know what you love, and you know that when you first wake up in the morning. Now, and I'm talking about like seconds, possibly minutes. It's that in between, and people might even call it like a theta state. I'm not even that technical with it. It's just that space of honesty that happens right before you fall asleep. Now, the rest of the day can be filled with noise, and I got to focus on this, and this person did this, but like those 30 seconds and 2 minutes when you're waking up and falling asleep, what's weighing on you? What lights you up? It's so fucking easy. The hard thing is getting out of our own way. That's why I do what I do. It's not like, oh, I'm done, check off, and I'm just watching everybody else on the planet. It's like, no, I'm still evolving, right? And like expanding that space of, I'll say, truth and honesty and congruency for myself. But it's just like the hardest thing is really getting out of our own way. And then like, God, self-trust is such a fucking deep conversation, but it's like, how many of us are plugged into the news, the experts, the whatever, because we actually don't trust ourselves. When like, I actually want to give people a challenge, and I don't know if your audience is mostly men, so maybe even a dare, but like unplug for shit from 7 days. Don't watch it. I literally am daring everybody, challenging everybody. Don't watch things. Don't look at things. Don't hook into your normal ways of where you can get that negative feedback for 7 days. Just trust yourself for 7 days. Do you follow what lights you up? What's your passions? What makes your heart sing? Do that for 7 days. I always tell people, look, if you crash and burn after 7 days, you can come back from it, but just really 7 days, that's it. Go all in. At the end of that time, you'll start to see something different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've heard of that idea, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, and there's a reason why it is those three little monkeys that do that. it's for that exact same reason. And absolutely, you know, this year for myself has been I've gotten the most clear on who I am and where my strengths are and where my powers are the most this year, because of exactly that, because of I cut the noise out. And to speak to what you're saying, like, you know, it's true in these moments. Something else that I think can be really helpful for people while we're talking about this is when the idea of purpose. And, you know, speaking to, you know, since you brought up men, I think what I've seen amongst men, and this is including myself, is because, and this is very specific to people in the West, because of the luxuries of life we've been afforded up to this point, the ability to find your purpose it has become very, very difficult. Because before, your purpose was always right there. Like, you just had to find food and you had to keep your family safe, and your body was directly reflected. Like, the purpose of your exact makeup was your purpose. You were built to do a certain thing. Right now, that's not necessarily true. You know, you could whatever, and it doesn't matter, because there's other ways of attaining those things. And so for a long time, one of my biggest struggles was purpose. And one of the best teachings I've gotten of this year is to see that whatever your purpose is whatever's right in front of you. Like, whatever is right there, like whatever is, and back to the surrender project, the surrender experiment, like whatever that thing is that you're doing right now, whatever your job is, whoever's in your life, whoever is anywhere, whatever that thing is, because otherwise God or the universe would not have put it there to begin with, you know? And that took that made my life take a complete turn this year. I started getting into projects and things that I would have never seen myself do, because I would have resisted them in the past. I would have been like, this is bullshit, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to go over here, go over there. And Ruben knows, like, I have a history of jumping around from project to project to project, because I'm always like, well, this is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I idolize what I think my purpose is. And then once I just was like, yo, I'm just going to chop wood and carry water. Like, I'm like, my purpose is just whatever's right now. And that made me start developing skills and passions and connecting with people. And this year has even, our podcast has been doing so well this year in comparison, to previous, and other people. It's just been wild in that sense. And obviously, with everything you've been talking about, there is a lot of room for growth in the way I perceive and participate in this life. But I feel like this moment in history is allowing people, if they choose to listen, to really wake up to what gifts they have and what gifts they can bring onto this planet. So, aho to that.
I love that. I mean, I love everything you're just saying, but but I love that so much because I don't know, and I hate to put like masculine and feminine because they're just so defined, but yet people get that. Like, when I say that, like, even though I'm a feminine woman, I've been very like that kind of energy. So I feel like in some ways I really get men more, because it's like my purpose is important to me. And like, I totally relate to like what you said. And that, just to add like another spin to that, like, I think about 3 years ago, I stopped asking myself the question, like, what's my mission? Because I felt like it would change all the time, but yet it never really did. Actually, I was sharing with you guys in the beginning, I was like, actually, like, the undercurrent's been the same. It's just the way of delivering it has evolved. And so when I gave myself that permission, number one, to evolve, and like, it was a big deal for me to step away from the yoga studio and sell it. Like, I had like a big part of my identity died. And I was like, I just received this check for all this money, but I was like, why was I depressed for a month? Like, real talk. Like, I was like, fuck. Like, I didn't realize how connected I was into like that version of me, And so it was around that time, I think about 2018, that I started asking myself, well, what's fun? So it's kind of similar to what you're saying, different lingo. I was like, what's fun? If I didn't have to like figure it all out and try to project my life the next, 20 to 40 years, and just said like, what do I enjoy doing? And I was like, God, I really love the access bars. I'm like, I like geek out on them. I'm like, I love them so much, And I was like, okay, cool, run with that. Oh, wow, I really love this energy work. Okay, run with that. Oh, I really love working, one-on-one with my clients who really want to dig in deep for change. And then, you know, and I see their marriages transform and their lives transform and their businesses transform and their happiness transform. Like, that's fun for me. Not only did it provide a lot of clarity, because then I was like, oh, my mission's always been the same. Help people love themselves, create a life that they love, whether they know it or not. But also it made my life easier, because similar to what you're saying, Jesse, like that level of clarity and just ease of what was right there, ironically enough, was already right there. Mm-hmm. But it still like let me evolve, you know, and I'm still evolving. And the thing I know now, being 11 years in entrepreneurship and where I'm at in life, is like, I'm not, how do I put this? I'm not committed. I feel like it's a whole different thing. It's like, I'm not committed to where I'm at. I'm committed to me. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. And so, and for somebody who's like, well, what's the difference? Like, being committed to you does show up as, from the outside looking in, as a commitment to where you're at. But what that actually opens the door on is giving yourself permission to change your mind, to evolve how you're doing something, to start new projects, like you were saying, you know, to maybe go back to something that brought you joy that you thought you had to let go of, but you don't. And now you can include it again. And so what that also opened up, though, was my willingness to commit to everything became so much easier. And commitment is a huge part of success. Like, anybody listens to your podcast who like is like, I don't care, just what success, you better become friends with that word commitment. And I struggle with that, like, in a lot of ways, more than I want to actually admit. Like, I definitely have had to like look at that, you know. But when I actually got like, it was about being committed to me, and, you know, everything I just shared, it opened up something way easier and way more available and way more there, you know?
Awesome. Well, before we close out, I would love to hear what's next, what's new for Natalie, what is going on, what are the exciting things on the surface? Let the people know.
Oh, I love this so much. Okay, first of all, I definitely want to mention my Holiday Magic meditation bundle. It's so perfect. And it's not just for the holidays, although it's perfect in time for the holidays because it's end of the year. People are probably celebrating differently than they did before. There might be more stress involved in that, maybe lamenting the way it was. And I literally want people to still have an amazing, magical holiday season. And by magical, I just mean happy, joyful, whatever that means for you. I just like that word. But a really joy-filled, rewarding, fulfilling holiday season. And so if you are into guided meditation, if this conversation did resonate with you, or if you just want to get into it, no brainer, get it. And I'll send you guys that link. It's 12 meditations and they're phenomenal. And as far as what's next, one thing I've noticed, and it's kind of piggybacking off of things a couple questions ago, is going to 2021, I started having this sense, obviously I state the obvious, like it's a whole different ball game. Like 2020 was kind of like our little preview of that. And obviously, like, it remains to be seen, but I'm just going to say it loud and proud for the world right here. Like, we literally have to have a new playbook. And what started coming to me intuitively was, it's no longer going to be a luxury to, it's not gonna be a luxury to like play with the energies of gratitude and appreciation and acknowledgement, which, by the way, are dynamic fertilizers for your goals and for everything you want in life, but it's gonna be like a necessity. So I started looking at what I want people to have in 2021. Like, as the world probably gets crazier, it's probably not gonna not get crazier. What do I want people armed with so they actually can still have joy in their life, still be achieving what they want to, still, you know, even though the world might be insane, they're actually, as an individual, doing good. And so I'm getting ready to launch at the beginning of the year something called Having It All. It's a group program that's really, really empowering people to truly have it all, whatever that means for them. So you no longer have to choose between money and love, or your body or family, or this weird either ors we do to ourselves. Like, I can only have success here, but I'm going to struggle always over here. It's like, literally, it's time to fucking have it all, whatever that means for you. And having it all doesn't mean we all go become billionaires and go off to an island. Having all for somebody might go, hey, I want to like dedicate myself to minimalism and live in a tiny house. Awesome. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like really excited about that. It's really like, it's like really like, you know, number one, defining, or rather redefining or undefining what having it all means to you. And then giving people the true like mindset, energy, and then the action tools to actually create that, and then creating community online, because community has never been more important, and online is a way that we're all really need to connect to. And I really want this to be people's vehicle that's going to just have them go, holy shit, I can't believe how much my life's changed. So I'm really excited about that launching. I have some other things in the works. I'm writing a book actually based upon what I just shared with you guys with that, because I just know like it's like the conversation for moving forward. I'm gonna be launching a podcast probably the next month. And then just still doing what I love, the access bars and my coaching work and all the things.
Awesome. So we
Great.
look forward to
Can
being
people
in your
find
show.
your website or
Oh yes, yes. So definitely in the show notes, because no, people don't know how to spell my last name, but I want to say, yeah, the natalieburrage.com. I want to say, if I remember it accurately. I don't know, I never go to it. But you guys will have it. And Insta and all the stuff.
Same thing, right? Your name, first name, last name, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. It'll be all in the show notes, folks, so don't worry about that. All right.
Awesome. Well, Natalie, this has been an incredible conversation. This is definitely one of the best ones for the year. So thank you so much for coming on, spitting your wisdom. It has been awesome reconnecting. And folks, I hope you'd enjoy this. If you want to learn more about Natalie and what she's working on, please go follow her on Instagram, check out her website. And until next time, have a great day. Peace.
Bye.